You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
Now, Don, I was going to try and fudge this, but I reckon transparency is always the best policy. We spoke to the doc from Sydney for 45 minutes until it got to the 46th minute and I realised that I wasn't recording him. And all hell broke loose.
Did you spit the dummy?
I did.
Doctor, what type of qualification have you got? Because we need a clinical psychologist or psychiatrist.
Well, g'day to everyone. And look, can I just say that we've all had our moments. We've all had times when we thought we were recording and we weren't, and we might have had moments when we let our emotions get the better of ourselves. But I am keen, and I think most people listening to the podcast would be keen to know, Don, can you paint the picture of the moment that Sam realised it wasn't recording? Break it down in detail. What did he do?
Well, what didn't he do? I was going to walk out. I thought, are you there, Doc? I can't hear you.
I'm here.
Well, I'll just keep talking. What did he do and what didn't he do?
You can't hear him.
I can't hear the doc now.
Because you've probably kicked out the thing with your foot underneath. This is unreal.
Oh, well, ladies and gentlemen, this is what happened.
I can hear you, Doc. I don't have, God knows. This started, Doc, because Don was speaking to my son about the Melbourne Marathon. He ran in and we were trying to get you on the line, and inadvertently through us trying to truncate the conversation between Don and my son speaking about the Melbourne Marathon, I forgot to press record. And Don, if you want to go...
So hang on a moment. I'm just trying to work out, what is the discussion between the other two about the Melbourne Marathon? What's that got to do with you failing to hit record? Because it sounds like you're trying to share some of the blame.
No, I'm not sharing. I'm putting the total blame on Don and my son, who were chatting across the podcast while I was trying to get...
He's not bad, is he, Doc?
Anyhow...
he's not bad at deflecting the blame. When are you ever going to stand up and take it for yourself?
So I know that you've spoken about this before, but you had some very interesting topics. One of them, of course, we had already canvassed, but you said it much more succinctly and more better. You spoke about it in better terms than Mr. Thorburn, who's fallen on his sword at the Essendon Football Club down here because he put religion over football, and you had a theory on this.
Well, I just can't quite believe that cancel culture has got to the point where you can be cancelled for something you didn't say, because the people who are having a go at Andrew Thorburn because of some comments that were made in this church 9 years ago, do they realise that he didn't make the comments? The comments were to do with abortion and homosexuality and things like that. Andrew Thorburn was not in the church at the time. He wasn't there. He had no link to the church at the time. So cancel culture used to be that we'll dig up something that you said in the past and we'll come after you with pitchforks and destroy your life. It's now got to the point where cancel culture can cancel you over something that you did not even do. This sermon was not delivered by him. It was delivered by someone else. And this guy has then been given an ultimatum, Andrew Thorburn, you choose your church or you choose your club. And he thought to himself, well, stuff this, I'm out of here. So Essendon lose the CEO after 24 hours because the board has got spooked by the fact that someone else said something 9 years ago. I mean, that's like the person listening to this podcast right now losing their job because of something that Sam Newman said or Don Scott said. Can you imagine a scenario more ridiculous? Well, welcome to 2022. That's where we're at.
And it's a bit of a contradiction in terms, Doc, because the lass that was the face of the AFWL this year was a Muslim lass who and decided that she wouldn't be the face of the AFL when it was decreed that the women's competition would wear rainbow jerseys in honour of gay pride or whatever it was, and she said, no, I'm not part of that because that's not part of my upbringing. And so this is when sporting bodies get involved in political and social events. It ends up coming and biting them.
And what about this? Essendon says this is not about vilifying anyone for their personal religious beliefs. Well, that's exactly what it is. He has been pushed out the door because of his religious beliefs. He's been cancelled because of his Christianity. And I just think it's a very sad time that we're living in when you've got someone like Andrew Thorburn, who, by the way, never in his life has he gone shoving his religious views down anyone's throat. He actually said in an interview yesterday, he said, look, the only time I've ever spoken about religion is if anyone asked me. If anyone ever said, oh, maybe are you religious or whatever, then he'd answer the question. But running a bank or running a football club, he's focused on running a bank or running a football club. I mean, I just think it's terrible that people are so afraid now. And as you point out, and let's be honest, if this was someone of the Islamic faith, do you reckon that they would be cancelling him today over this? I don't think so. I think that then they'd be thinking to themselves, oh, hang on a moment, this might blow up in our face. So instead, let's just err on the side of caution and just leave them doing their job. But Christianity is probably an easier target in many respects when it comes to cancel culture. And so they've decided to wipe this bloke out. I mean,
so speaking of the Islamic faith, I noticed the Prime Minister has welcomed some women and their children from former people who might have been fighting against us overseas. Did I notice that correctly?
Yeah. So this is Islamic State. So Islamic State, of course, are those terrible terrorists who are doing awful things to innocent people, and it still goes on, but they were obviously a lot more powerful a few years ago than they are now. But there are a lot of Australians who fled Australia to go and fight with Islamic State, and now their wives, girlfriends and children want to come back to Australia, and Anthony Albanese has decided to say yes to them, to allow them to come to Australia. I just think that this is crazy. I think we're better off leaving them where they are, and that might sound a bit harsh, but once upon a time we took an approach after 9/11 where we didn't take any risks, and we said to people, look, yes, we're going to force you to do some things that might seem a little bit crazy, like, you know, when you're jumping on a plane, you can't take on liquids and things like that. And it was a pain in the arse, but it was designed to keep everyone safe. Now we've got 42 children and 16 women who are going to be brought to Australia. They were part of Islamic State. Now, maybe they didn't choose. Maybe they were coerced or pressured by their husbands or their fathers. But that's what they've been exposed to for the last few years. And if these children come to Australia, there's a chance that someone's going to get in their head at the mosque or at school or the football or the pub or anywhere else and say, hey, listen, you know your dad was killed by coalition forces, by Australian forces. So what are you going to do to defend your dad's honour? And I just really feel that there'll be nutcases who will get in the heads of these children and who will try and twist them around. And it only takes one person to do something horrific, like we saw, you know, we've seen with terror attacks. We've got the anniversary of the Bali bombings coming up where hundreds of people were killed in one go, including 88 Australians. It only takes one bad egg to cause so much destruction to so many people. And I don't know why we'd even bother taking the risk.
Yeah, but where do you draw the line, Doc? You've talked on two things this morning. I don't agree. I always believe give people a chance. Now, you've talked about one church, its views with regard to homosexuality, yet you're talking about another church or another religion, the Islamic. Where do you draw the line when it comes to religion?
Let me be really clear. This isn't a religious thing. I mean, the topic we're talking about now about Islamic State is about a safety thing. It's about a security thing.
Yeah, but
it's about a gang of people. It's a gang of people who were chopping people's heads off and then passing the heads to their children and taking selfies with the decapitated individuals and posting them online.
But I didn't see the women doing this. I saw men doing it, and I would offer a little bit of sympathy to these women. Maybe they've had to go across there.
What about their children?
And the children.
Let me answer that for you, Don. There will be some women who were pressured into doing so and didn't want a bar of it. There are others who are ISIS brides who are proud of the fact that this is who they are, and they would love to be able to kill people if it meant spreading the word about their ridiculous group called Islamic State. How do you know the difference between the two? Everyone's going to say, oh, no, I was pressured into going over there. I didn't want to do it. But how do you know when they come back to Australia who's telling the truth and who's telling a lie? who's been de-radicalised, who is still radicalised. And we've even had cases in London where you've had a terrorist who was de-radicalised, who was leaving a de-radicalisation class and then pulled out a knife and started stabbing people and killing people in the street. I mean, that's where it becomes a risk. But I just take the approach of, look, at the moment, this is not our problem. At the moment, this is a problem involving a handful of people on the other side of the world. Why would we import this problem to Australia when currently it is not ours? And you know what? We all know that in life we've got to make some tough decisions, and you've got to be cruel to be kind, and we show tough love. And sometimes you've got to do things like this. Sometimes you've got to introduce extreme measures, and you've got to break a few hearts as far as the news you deliver to some of these people in order to keep millions of people safe. It's not the news these people want to hear, but at the moment this is not our problem. I don't understand why we would make it our problem.
Now, I'm going to try and I'm not sure if we can make this happen spontaneously again. You gave us a riddle, Doctor. You gave us a riddle. We've already done this because we.
No, mate. You can't. You
can't do this again.
Recreate that. No. We'll pull that one another time. But look, can I just ask? I'd just like to ask. No,
that's a very interesting thing because I could tell you what Don wrote down. I can tell you what I wrote.
No. We're just going to let it go. And it'll be very spontaneous next time.
No, because you'll know next time what the answer is.
Well, my observation, Doc, is that you're now bowling medium pace. You were coming off bowling off a really long run. You were bowling Harold Larwood style. You were really ripping in the body now, but you've gone back to Neil Hawke or some medium pace bowler that's got not much, or I shouldn't say venom.
No, well, you know why? When we spoke before, I just hopped off air and I'd had 6 shots of coffee, and now I've just come home and calmed down a little bit. But look, what I'll do, this is what I'll do. You guys just shut up for a moment, and I'll just do a little bit of a test with anyone listening right now. So what I want you to do, I want you to answer these questions right now straight away when I ask these questions. This is for the person listening right now. So, what's 1 plus 1? What's 2 plus 2? What's 4 plus 4? What's 8 plus 8? And now name any vegetable. Straight away, don't delay, name any vegetable. Did you think carrot? If you thought carrot, I've just read your mind. So there you go.
Well,
I'm predicting that we'll get messages from people on the Instagram page saying, how the hell did he know that I thought carrot? And we need to keep it to ourselves, the mystery of why that is so.
Well, could I say, Doc, we've already done this, and when you asked us to write it down, and I wrote down on my bit of paper carrot, and I asked Don to hold up his bit of paper, and he wrote down...
Potato.
Mr. Potato Head wrote down potato, and I said, why did you write down potato, Don? Why did I write down carrot? And it's extraordinary, isn't it, that you would write
down... the reason is 90% of people say carrot. I don't know why. It's just what 90% of people do. And then there's this 10% of people who've got a very different way of thinking. The Don Scotts of this world, they will say something else. But 90% of people will come up with carrot. And listen, Don, can I just ask you, because you're usually the fashionista on the podcast, can you just talk me through what's Sam wearing today? Can you just describe it? Because I've had a spy in there. I've had a spy tell me that it's a very interesting creation today.
Okay, well, can I start from the bottom?
Sure.
He's got plastic...
That is my feet, you mean?
Your feet. Bottom. Feet. He's got camouflage plastic shoes on. Camouflage like you
plastic?
Wear. Yeah, they're a rubber plastic. And he's got sockets with those. Now, it is freezing. I've got a woolen jumper on, but he's got his shorts on, his Bermuda shorts or board shorts, which come down to his knees. Now, the fashion accessory are braces. Now, the braces are not worn. They're not worn over the shoulder. They are hanging as... You could probably, if we go back to the 40s, you know, a man would come home from work when braces were fashionable. He'd sit down, open a brown neck, and he'd take his braces off and hang them down. You know, you got to visualise the man sitting at the table with his braces down around his knees. Well, he's got his braces down around his knees.
When did the braces come into
He
fashion?
wore them too. No.
These are suspenders, they're called, the other term for them.
Suspenders, yeah.
Yes, well, they came
Aren't
in.
they the sexy things that ladies wear underneath their dresses? Suspenders?
They're suspenders for the stocking.
Spencer's.
No. You are dead right. The ladies used to use those for stockings. They were suspenders.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's right. And they'd use and hook their stock. Yes.
Men used to put-
a Spencer is a lady's singlet.
As opposed to the thing you wear on your teeth.
Now,
the
Doc,
braces.
I haven't finished. Then he's got a long sleeve T-shirt on, long sleeve, crew neck. But over the top of that, he's got a short sleeved crew neck.
Oh, strange.
And on top of that, a parka, a sleeveless parka. The only thing I'm envious of is his head of hair, because I've got nothing and he has.
So I'll be rushing off to the Instagram page to have a look at that. Now, listen, Kanye West, the rapper, are you across what Kanye
Yes.
West has done?
Yes.
I'm not.
He's gone to the Paris fashion show,
White Lives Matter.
and he was wearing a T-shirt that said "White Lives Matter." So can I just say thank you to Kanye West, because I agree with him 100%. I think white lives matter. I think black lives matter. I think all lives matter.
Correct.
But in the United States, there would be people who would be petrified of dare saying that white lives matter. In fact, most people are terrified of even saying all lives matter. The only thing they'd ever want to say is that black lives matter. So how good is it to have this African-American bloke who's one of the biggest superstars in the world, who doesn't give a stuff what people think about him? He doesn't care what he's supposed to say. He just tells people what he thinks. He happened to be a Donald Trump supporter. You might remember he wore the Make America Great Again red cap. He went into Trump's office in the White House when Trump was the US president. And he's brave enough, this bloke, to turn up at a fashion show wearing a T-shirt saying white lives matter.
And the ex-husband of Kim Kardashian. And
Yes.
he was over there with Candace Owens, who is a black woman who could honestly, easily be the President of the United States. She speaks more sense in a day than most people do in a lifetime.
Well, have you heard the news about Joe Biden? Joe Biden has confided in a Reverend Al Sharpton, I think it is, that he is going to run again in 2024.
What?
No, but Joe
Yeah.
doesn't realise that, though. Joe doesn't realise he is meant.
Joe has confided in the Reverend that he will be running again in 2024. So I don't know whether he knows what year it is currently, Joe Biden, but he reckons that he's going to be there in 2024 and beyond.
Now, could I just not necessarily finish on this, Doc? But we had a run of caps made. You cannot be serious hats.
Yes.
Michael Christian Menswear.com has commissioned a run, and they've sold out completely. And we put it down indirectly to the fact that people want to buy the caps because you come on every other week and give us pearls of wisdom from Sydney and speak eruditely and sensibly about subjects. And if you want to buy them, you can go to michaelchristianmenswear.com, and I think they staggered at the price of them because they're so cheap, $39.95.
They're a rip-off, Doc.
Thank you, Don.
That's a great deal. Great deal, $39.99.
If we sent you one, would you wear it?
Of course I would.
You cannot be
love
serious.
To.
Well,
And you know what? I love anything that's free, right? I love freebies. And I'll end on this one for you. I want to tell you a great story, right? And this is proof how much Australians love a freebie, right? I went to a lunch many, many years ago when Mark Taylor, our former Australian cricket captain, scored 334 runs, and it equalled Don Bradman's record. And then he came back to Australia victorious from this overseas cricket tour, and there was a lunch held in his honour at the Wentworth Hotel in Sydney. And I went along to this lunch, and when I went into the lunch, when I took my seat, I noticed that everyone had been given a show bag because Arnott's was the sponsor of the lunch, right? So I thought, we've got an Arnott's show bag. So I had a look inside it, right? And inside the Arnott's show bag at this Mark Taylor lunch was, a cap and a pen and all that kind of stuff. But then there was a packet of Scotch finger biscuits, right? Beautiful. How good are Scotch fingers?
Oh.
And there was a packet of Tim Tams. So as I sat down, I said to the others on the table, happy days, free packet of Tim Tams, right? So I sit down at the table, we have the lunch, And this was the only time in my life that I saw Kerry Packer live in the flesh. So he was in the room. He was on the front table. And after Richie Benno finished speaking, I watched Kerry Packer quietly get up and excuse himself to the people on his table to say goodbye to them all. And he went to do the dash out of the room. But I was watching him closely. And when he got to the door, he stopped in his tracks. He looked back over his shoulder. And then he started creeping back into the room amongst all of the applause for Richie. And I could tell he was sheepish about it, but I said to everyone on my table, I said, watch him. He's going back for the Tim Tams, right? And, mate, Australia's richest man went back into the room because he knew that there was a free packet of Tim Tams and a free packet of Scotch finger biscuits there, and that goes to prove you it doesn't matter how rich you are, a freebie is a freebie, and we all love them.
And you
Doc.
can't be serious, Doc.
Love you, boys.
Right. Thank you, Doc. All the best.
See ya.
This has recorded, this one. So good on you. See ya.
Talk to you in a couple of weeks. Bye.